Hi Jane.
Hi Fleur.
Welcome. Although I should say thank you for welcoming us here in this beautiful house, in this typical Dutch surrounding. This is the first of a series of talks we are planning with course teachers. I'm very happy to be able to talk with you about the course and the spiritual path we are both following and what it means for you and what it does for your life. You've been in Holland now for 3 years, I think.
3 years,
Yeah.
that's right.
And how is it for you?
It's great.
Mm.
Yeah, we both Paul and I really enjoy living here. We made our decision quite a while ago. It was not an easy decision because to uproot yourself, especially as at this particular phase of life, and say goodbye to something that's totally familiar. But we knew in our heart we wanted to be here. And we love the culture, we love the people.
Yeah.
We love the willingness that people have to work with spirituality.
Yeah, I wondered about that, about the difference between the Canadian and the Dutch, and also about the difference in the way they approach the course.
Right. I don't think that there's a difference in terms of the way that people approach the course, because I think the course speaks to everybody individually, and that people are attracted for whatever reason. The difference I find is how open, willing and secure do you feel in being able to talk about what's really going on for you and how the course affects you. Okay. Because for me that's what the work is about. Yeah. And to be able to openly share, this is what I'm struggling with, this is what's in my heart. So I find the Canadian culture, British culture, because I'm also British, is a little more protected in that way. Yeah. And that for whatever reason, because I don't know enough about the history of Holland, people seem to be much more open about, yes, I'm a spiritual being and I'm studying the Course in Miracles.
Yeah, and I want to look at everything that's inside me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues we had, we worked for a long time in Canada, and we had a group for over 13 years. And one of the issues was, well, I'm fine talking about this here, but I'm not going to tell my family, I'm not going to tell people at work. There's kind of like an embarrassment about being spiritual. Okay. And I relate to that, I understand it, I experienced that myself. But to be able to work with people who are, here I am, I'm ready to work, let's go for it, it's wonderful.
I can imagine.
And the Dutch also tell you very clearly when they don't like things.
And that's wonderful also.
Actually, it is.
In the end it is.
Yeah, it is. You know where you are.
Yeah, I wondered about that because you are working here, you are giving groups, trainings, and also a 3-year training.
Yes.
And besides that, you are still working at the University of Toronto as an educational trainer.
That's right.
Quite a combination, those two jobs, to combine them. In Canada, at the university, is it something you can talk about? Can you share this?
No, I mean, yes, I can on a one-by-one basis. Yeah. When I've established some trust, intimacy, whatever, with another person, and that doesn't matter who you are, where you are on the planet, but because we're all thirsty for this. I don't doubt. We're all thirsty for some form of spiritual meaning or understanding our purpose here. But the level of fear in terms of sharing that, there are some things that are happening in medicine now that I think are very exciting. And that is, there are people who are very interested and passionate about the humanistic aspect of medicine and the spiritual, where does spirituality play out? And so I could go to that group of people and they'd be absolutely, totally interested in this, but that's not the majority. And within my own office, if I talked about the Course in Miracles, it's called professional suicide.
Yeah, okay, that's what it is.
That's right.
No, because when I thought about it, I saw this similarity with Helen and Bill, who also worked.
Well, that's part of why the Course has so much credibility for me.
Yeah. That's. I thought, okay, you're also working in a kind of institution as Dale is. That's something really institutionalized and professional, real professional.
That's right.
Surrounding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what the most important message is that the course has to tell you?
I've forgotten who said this. I think it might be. He's a British guy who wrote Happiness Now. The name will come back to me.
Robert Holden.
Robert Holden, that's right.
Yeah.
I think he uses the expression that the Course is a love letter to each and every one of us from God. And so to me, I think the most difficult journey that we have is learning to truly love ourselves and see ourselves in the way that God sees us. And so there isn't like one piece of the Course. I mean, there are many that stand out. If you ask me what are my favorite pieces, right, or what do I use a lot, but the essence of the Course, for me, that's what the Course is all about.
One big love letter from God.
To each of us individually,
wow.
Which I find, I don't know if you've had this experience, but often when Paul and I do a group, we just randomly open the book.
Yeah.
I have read it back to front at least 4 times.
I can't say that.
And then I open it and we read something. I've never read that before. It changed. Yeah. But I find that fascinating too, that the understanding of the Course seems to, the words speak differently based on where you are in your life, what you've experienced already, this type of thing. Yeah. So it's always, it never ends.
No, it's always new and it's always inspiring.
Yeah.
So a love letter from God to all of us. Yeah, I've never heard that one before. I think that's also what I experience in your work in a way. Although your way is I want to talk about your work here. What I find so refreshing and new is that you really combine the psychological part, the therapeutical part, you can say, with the spiritual part.
Right.
So in your groups, we really see and notice that we are human and that we are all human, and we look at all the totally human things that we share. And that brings us to experience love. At least it's like that for me. And that's, for me, it's amazing every time again. You have a name for it. You call it transpersonal coaching, I think.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
And I'm curious about how this work came to you. What's your inspiration? Where you got your education in this field?
Okay. Well, in terms of where I got my education, I'll start there. I think it's a combination of what I was learning through life anyway, and my own struggles, obviously. Yeah. My own experience with, when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I experienced a lot of depression, which took me to therapy, first of all. Okay. So I had a lot of experience with my own personal therapy. I've always been fascinated by people. So my undergraduate degree at university it took me a very long time to land on it, but I finally realized I like reading novels. Why do I like reading novels? I like reading novels because it's all these interactions and relationships. And so I finally ended up in social science, which is studying group dynamics and how people interact and all of those things. So that was happening anyway. Yeah. I've always had a spiritual longing that I couldn't really name.
I wondered about that. Yeah.
I did not grow up in a religious family. So my parents had Christian values. And of course, if my brother and I did things they didn't like, then the Bible would be quoted and used according to whatever proves the point the best. But my parents were very, they were, they lived in England, in Coventry during the war, and experienced a tremendous amount of loss, and could not make sense. Their view of God was, if there really was a God, then God would not let this happen. And I always knew that it wasn't, I understood, I totally understood, but I always knew that that's not what God's about. It's, we're the ones who make it happen. So I had this longing, and I like many people of, this particular generation, tried everything, Buddhism.
Okay, yeah.
Read everything.
From what age on you started with?
I would say probably about age 19 or so.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I had a big turning point when I was in my late 20s. I had a very good friend who confided in me that she was an alcoholic, that she was experiencing blackouts, that she had small children, she was blacking out. Sometimes she looked after my children, and she, it was just, I have to do something. And she joined Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah. And as she became sober, and she shared everything with me from the 12-step program, and it spoke to me. It totally spoke to me. And it wasn't enough. And so, all of that, the depression, many things have happened in my life where I've needed to try and figure things out. And that's where the Course in Miracles came in and built on the 12-step program, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Because, the 12-step program, the way it was devised was they studied all of the major world religions and found out what do they all have in common. Because if they all say the same thing, then this must be the truth. So yes, it's. I think it's a very practical and deep way of living. In terms of putting all these pieces together, I came across, it was an organization in Canada called Clearmind. Yeah. And that's where I met Paul. It's the first workshop I went to, and I'd been reading the Course, and I knew that I wanted to be able to connect with other people. And Dwayne O'Kane came in town at that point from Vancouver. Paul was working with Dwayne. I took a workshop, and it's like, this makes so much sense. Before I was reading the Course, I never really tried to understand it. But I got that it made a difference to my thinking, and that's what kept me reading it. Yeah. But after doing a workshop, I could read it. It made sense because I'd experienced it from the inside. Yeah. And so we were involved with Clearmind for, I guess, about 5 years, and taught a program for them in Toronto. But I did a lot of training that way, and then that combined with my own training, because I already had a lot. Then we branched out from there and created our own version.
Your own version. Yeah. And I remember a story you told about how Paul called you up, and that was the start of your relationship. Yeah. This was you lost a daughter, didn't you? Yeah. Was that in this period, or was that?
Well, it's so in terms of how the Course came to me, giving you a lot of the background in terms of the spirituality, finding pieces that fitted for me, this type of thing. My daughter died in a car accident in 1991. The Course came to me probably 2 years after that, because I was reading everything I possibly could to try and make sense. Yeah. And everything I read referred to the Course in Miracles. And then a friend came along and kind of tossed it at me, really. He said,
it's always like that. It comes to you.
Yeah, she said, I don't know. She said, I've been reading it, but maybe it's something for you. Yeah. So that's how the Course came. So it was actually about 4 years after my daughter died, but I was still really struggling. So, there are certain times that are difficult, like her birthday, like the anniversary of her death. And I was feeling this very profoundly one day. And I had been thinking about joining the group, and that's where I got this seemingly random phone call saying,
From Paul,
Paul, whom I'd never met.
In the evening,
and for those of you who've met Paul, he's really pushy, he's very passionate about what he does. You were at A Course in Miracles group. No, I wasn't. Oh, yes, you were. No, I wasn't.
And seemingly you were,
I thought about it. I had phoned up. So I finally said, maybe it's spirit. I can tell you, in this physical body, I have never been to A Course in Miracles group. So that, of course, didn't deter him. Well, never mind. There's this talk. So that's how it began. And I truly thought he was a crazy person. Yeah.
You still think that?
I understand him a lot better. But that is many people's reaction to him at first.
Yeah, and that was your only daughter, or do you have other children?
I have a son.
You have a son.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how old were you when she died?
I was 40.
40.
Yeah.
I could have counted that, but I'm not so quick in calculation.
Yeah.
So yeah. And she was?
She was 21.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also one of my questions, but maybe this is already an answer. Because not what we see is often is that the Course comes into our life at a moment that we really need it, or that we really have things we struggle with, or questions that just are not being answered by anything. But that was also for you. I think that was also the case for you when you tell this story.
Absolutely.
It was really a time when you needed it. And
I needed the help in making sense. Not that I think you can ever make sense of something like this, but accept it. Yes. I mean, that's the only way to get to peace, really. Right?
That's what happened for you. That's what. Another question is, what is the hardest part of the Course for you? Is there like a part that's, and maybe this also changes through life, that you really struggle with, or maybe it's also something in your life now that you're struggling with, and you find that you are just when you know that the Course is telling you this or that you just can't really live it or find it true already.
I think for me, sometimes we make jokes, and I see it all the time in our groups as well. Is this a Course in Miracles, or is it a curse in miracles?
Yes. I haven't heard that one yet, but because
there's sometimes for me where it feels so hard to forgive a certain situation, or change my mind about a certain situation, or acknowledge there is only love here, there is real purpose, there is whatever. And sometimes it's like, no, that has to be wrong. That has to be wrong.
It
there
can't
is
be true.
This is not fair, or what I'm being unfairly treated in some way or other. So mostly I can deal with that. If there are things that are very painful, I find it harder. But I remember, I don't know if you've had this experience, but a couple of times where I felt like I picked up the book again, something was on my mind, so randomly pick up the book and felt like it went I'm worrying about something, and basically the Course says, who do you think you are to think that you know better than God or the universe in terms of what's supposed to happen here? Or that I think, the parental role and the caring about people, that's, there's such a fine line between that coming truly from the heart and controlling out of fear, and thinking that fear and anxiety about the people that you love is love, and it's not. It's anxiety.
That taking care is always
That's
love.
right, and that
you
know what's supposed to happen for another person. And so that's, I feel like I'm a lot I've had enough experience with this now,
yeah.
with the Course basically saying, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
And the faster you accept the fact that you're wrong.
Is there like one thing that you can remember that's really that was that came so clear to you that you were wrong, and not in the way that it's not about right or wrong, but that it's
My thinking was,
that your thinking and your perception was wrong, and that it stood between you and happiness. Is there?
Well, yes. I mean, I think I think it happens in very small things.
Mm-hmm. It happens
Often.
all the time. Yeah. Yeah, but for me it's like with the children, it can be so
That's
clear.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Especially-
I mean, a lot, not a lot, but often we talk about people want to be in this state of peace or a state of love, or they want more balance in their life or whatever, and there's a tendency to look at that as though that's an end point. This is something I must strive to, and a state that I must achieve, and make themselves wrong if they're not there all the time. And I really see it more as a much more dynamic process, like riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
You get on a bicycle, and it's kind of unconscious, and you're doing your thing. But if you don't keep adjusting, like if something comes in your way, or you have to turn right or left or whatever, you're constantly, it's constantly a process of adjustment. And I think that's the same with this work. It's about being fully alive in the moment, and being awake and vigilant in terms of how your mind is interpreting things. So that's a day-by-day type of thing. The most challenging for me has always been around the people that I truly love, who are close to me, and family. And we went through a period of time with Paul's daughter, where she was definitely experiencing depression, and we couldn't reach her. So we're here in Holland, and she's in Toronto. We don't know, is she dead? Is she alive? Is she, and that's when I picked up the book, because I just couldn't sleep, and that's when it basically told me, who do you think you are? To think that you know what's best.
What is supposed to happen?
What is supposed to happen here? Yeah, that is one of the major.
But with things like
themes,
this, when you are so, it's so normal to be concerned and to have this anxiety every second of the day about this daughter,
About children,
about children,
Yeah.
and then doing this work.
Yeah, that's right.
For some people, it's also like as if you are not caring, or as if you're not doing everything that you are supposed to do.
That's right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago I heard you using the sentence, "Don't judge the judge," and I find that a beautiful one-liner with a very important thing to tell us, because I find that it is really a pitfall for course students, because the course is teaching us not to judge, or is telling us not to judge and to look at that. How is that for you? How do you work with that and
With my own judgments?
Yes, with your own judgment.
I accept that I have them, number one.
Yeah.
I don't make myself wrong for having them.
Yeah.
I recognize that my judgments do create more pain inside me than peace. And that it's a process. If I've got these judgments coming up, it's like I said, it's this whole thing about self-love, and this being a love letter from God. If I have these judgments, then the Course talks about all things, all behavior is either a cry for love, or an extension of love. And these judgments, if I ask myself the question underneath this, what's my real cry for love here? Then my judgments can take me to something that's a lot softer, and where I need some care.
So
and
that's
compassion.
the question you are asking yourself when you are noticing, because a lot of the times we are not noticing our judge, that we're judging. So then you are and it immediately feels a lot.
It's softer. That's right. Yeah.
What is it that I am
Yeah,
in
what's
need
my-
for?
that's
What's
right.
my
That's my cry for love.
cry for love?
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, it's a shortcut. Yeah, I mean, I know that of course the 5 steps and the 6 steps. This is also a very short way to get there.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's easier to answer that question than others.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know. I just know I'm in pain because that's really the only reason we need to judge.
Yeah. Because we are in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we project our pain.
Yeah, that's why
and our guilt.
I love the work of Byron Katie as well,
Yeah.
because she's very clear. You're judging all the time. Use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything leads.
Yeah.
You know, if you choose it, everything will lead you back home.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that, of course, you use the Course in Miracles in your trainings, and that it is a big inspiration. But are there
other people that have really influenced me? Yes, Katie, Marianne Williamson, Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 that come to mind most immediately. I do like the work of Robert Holden. It's a little bit, takes you in a little bit of a different direction. But he's one of the few people who is out in what we call the mainstream.
Yeah, that's true. I think he's not that famous in Holland yet.
But
in the United States
and in England.
Yeah.
He's been on the Oprah show. And,
okay, yeah.
He's part of the Hay House group. Of course, there are
Wayne Byers, of course, also. He's also the Course in Miracles.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't rely on Wayne as much.
Ah.
I do respect his work. But those are the names that come to mind.
Okay, yeah. Do you have one course teacher, one person that has been really important for you, or is it more an organic process?
I would say it's more of an organic process.
Yeah, that's what I hear from your story.
My early days of studying the course, I think I listened to every single one of Marianne Williamson's tapes. And whenever she was in Toronto, I'd go and watch her speak. Because she has such an amazing, she's got a very sharp mind.
Yeah.
She understands the course back to front. And she embraces her humanity within all of this. So it helped me bring it from this kind of esoteric level into, no, this is something we really can work with every day, all the time.
Yeah.
But I do tend to go for the more confrontational types.
Yeah. I noticed that the first time I came to one of your workshops, it was clear that this was different way of working with the course.
Yeah.
And for me it was like an elevation. Is that the proper word? I don't think so.
Hear the context.
No.
There's an elevator.
A renovation.
Renovation.
Revelation.
Oh,
thank you, Paul.
Oh, look at that.
Oh.
Beautiful. I love trees.
Yeah. Because of this. I think the first workshop I did was about returning to innocence, but it was also about sex.
That's right.
That was the first about sexuality.
Yeah.
And the first evening we had this practice that we had to give everybody a number. So
that's one of our. That's pretty high.
It's high on the level of being confronting.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was, but it also it opens up so much, and to make these subjects so approachable, and to start being honest about the things that we feel shame or guilt about.
That's right.
Most.
Yeah.
You are good in it. I think.
Yes. We like to pick the hot topics.
Yeah.
Sexuality, money.
Yeah. Things
Identity,
like that. Identity.
Forgiveness.
Yes, we did. You did a workshop on money. This workshop and our issues with money all have to do with self-worth and the question, do we value ourselves, and how do we feel about ourselves? How is that for you? How did it work out for you? And what is your relation? Did it do something with your relationship with money?
Well, the program was 7 weeks long, and there was a part, sort of partly in the middle, I knew that the work was very powerful. And there was a point in the middle where I was asking people, so have you seen any changes? And I'm hearing things like, oh, I'm getting more work. Yes, I have more money. Oh, I've been offered 2 more jobs. And meantime, I get a phone call telling me that both of my jobs in Canada might not exist anymore. You know, Paul's diagnosed with this condition, which will mean he's going to be down for 2 months. And it's like,
So
I see everybody going like this, and it's like, whoa.
I'm giving the wrong workshop, or I'm giving it the wrong.
Taking this.
Yeah, I need to be taken.
No, but my main, you know, what I realized is in choosing this particular path. So I can do very well in my university world, and everything's very secure in terms of paying the bills and, you know, all of those things. But this is my passion, and you know, creating a way to be sustained by the work is much more challenging for a variety of reasons. And I know that there are many, many people who are, you know, working in the healing professions, doing this type of thing, that struggle in the same way. But the anxiety that comes with, this is what I want to do, and you know, I'm not a business person. I don't know how to do PR. I hate filing, bookkeeping, you know, publicity, saying, hey, here we are. This
is what we do.
Right. I hate it. And so, you know, but without having those pieces, then you can't have the sustainability. There's so much that's entangled in all of this. And so, you know, it really got me reflecting on, wait a minute, this has been an issue my whole adult life. There has to be something else operating here other than just the logical, you know, because we always have help from people in the sense of, well, you should do this, and you should do, and try this, and try that, and yet, there's rarely enough energy to do all the things. And B, there's some kind of block. So what is that about?
Yeah, because you also, when you say I hate it, I mean, you know that there's a block.
There's a block. That's right.
And
and so I really undertook this in terms of, you know, there's a point, I guess it was last year, where Paul and I both kind of turned to each other and said, okay, you know, this has happened so many times and is so consistent. There has to be something that's asking to be healed here. And so we made the commitment to really walk into that. And what I found is, yes, the vows that we make, the beliefs that we have, how much that influences our self-worth and what we're able to accomplish in the world, I think is phenomenal. And I think the world, supposedly doesn't exist, is much in need of healing, specifically about money, because you know, there is no reason why there should be any hunger or any lack for anybody on the planet. So there's something needs
something
healing
going on which causes a lot of pain.
That's right.
A lot of separation.
That's
also,
right.
Huh?
And when push comes to shove, I've seen this over and over again, even the most spiritual people, if they have to make a choice between what makes sense in terms of money and what their heart tells them, they'll go with the security of the money, which...
that's what you've... And for me, it seems like it has to be possible to choose what your heart tells you and to earn money.
And it is. No, I really believe that. I do. But I think there is a lot of similarity in the people who choose to do this kind of work and the kinds of beliefs and vows that they hold.
Yeah.
And that I remember reading something once, historically speaking, the messages that we've received about money is that money is not spiritual.
Exactly.
So you look at nuns and monks and, in all religions, and they, what's that called when you disavow?
Yeah.
You basically, you have nothing to do with money, right? Because that's earthly, and the focus is on spirituality. And so what ended up happening is that people without spiritual values got to have a lot of money, and those with the spiritual values, are being really loyal to this belief on an unconscious level, I think.
Yeah.
And so they've got the right values in terms of helping the world, but they don't have the resources they need. And so it's really, really important that we bring this gap together.
And when you talk about it like this, it also has to do with renunciation of the worldly
That's the
things.
word.
Yeah, that was the word you had. To renounce. So together we get there. Of the things of the world, of the world, the material things, and that's always a hard part for people working with spirituality. I mean, also the course also says we are spirits. We are only spirit, and nothing outside is real. And for a lot of people, and for me, this was also hard to see that the material part and how do you call it? The part outside is very important because it reflects everything that's inside. So it's not something that you should push away or make unimportant. And when you see that it reflects something inside, you can heal the thing that's inside, and maybe there is
something else can happen.
Something else is going to happen outside. And that's also, of course, has to do with money. What we found out, or most people found out in the workshop, that it all has to do with self-worth. That was the main issue.
Well, it's self-worth and the fact that we consistently, which is, it's just a childhood phenomenon, but we choose between what we know is our greatness and our need to belong. And so we will make ourselves small in what we think is our, that's what will get us love, right? And yet that true bigness that we all want to express, it's just waiting. And those things do have to be untangled.
So you are talking about really strong mechanisms out of the family systems, but also out of being small and totally dependent on your parents or your caretakers. And how do you get this love?
Yeah, that's right. And I think, what I learned in the money workshop, I learned many things myself. One of them being I need to take it again. Teach it again so I can learn it. Is that whole concept of, it's one thing to get in touch with your beliefs about yourself or about the world or about other people, and to do forgiveness work on those. But if we keep repeating patterns, it means that we have a blind spot. And if we have a blind spot, we have something that's deeper than a belief, which is a vow. That somewhere along the line, I vowed to never be visible in this world, or to never ask for what I need, to always be in service to other people's needs. To uncover that and to really look at it and bring compassion to it, I think that's where things loosen up.
Because that was really a new term, new word that came in, and I find it it's strong. Because of course the course is talking about beliefs, and but vows,
and it's hard to believe that because they're held at an unconscious level. So it's hard to believe that I would vow to keep myself small when the course is telling me I'm magnificent, and that does bring a lot of confusion, I think, to students of the course and people working with it, because it's like, okay, the words are telling me this, and I believe this. So why am I manifesting this?
Yes.
Or why is it still hard for me to stand up in front of a group of people and really shine? Or to ask for what I need within my own family.
Yeah. Yeah, I realize now that that is of course what the very famous text of Marianne Williamson is about, about not being
It's
afraid.
not our darkness, but our light.
But our light. Yeah. And I used to get so irritated by this.
Oh, really? Have you a clue?
Yeah, and it has changed, but it took a long time. I thought, what is she talking about? And yeah. And it has to do with this spouse. It's really a blind spot, and of course that's one of the things. I think that only 5% is of the things that we believe is conscious for us. So 95% is unconscious, and is something that is not accessible for us immediately. How do you work with that? Because the course is talking about beliefs and the things we believe, but we have to know what we believe to be able to uncover this,
I think
unconscious part.
You know, we all okay, so my belief, and this is part of where the educator comes into this work, is that I think we really learn when we have a combination of using the intellect and using emotion and sensation and all the other forms that we have of gathering and processing information. We don't just process information through our minds, we process it through every cell in our body, through our hearts, through our emotions. And I think that when you combine that, when you have some conceptual understanding of an issue, and you've allowed yourself to feel your way through it, all the way to its depths, then the insights come. You know, whatever has remained hidden, it's there. It's right there.
Yeah.
And from that point, you can use that intellectual understanding with this, you know, very vulnerable thing that we try to protect ourselves from. And when those two come together, then something. The switch. To me, the switch goes off. I see it. I experience it myself. And I see it in other people. Yeah. And I mean, we've got lots of processes that we use. But the processes are really irrelevant. They're only a tool. Sometimes you don't even need that tool because the willingness is there. Or you know, I mean, I think if you're willing to use your mind and your heart, that it's about using the mind in service to the heart rather than the other way around.
Yes, and it is as if when there is, like as the course is saying, is a little willingness, just a little some being open to bring things to light. Then that's my experience. It happens sometimes. It just happens.
Yeah, it's true.
I had an insight. It was a small one, but a few days ago I was thinking about going on holiday and planning a vacation, and I noticed that I've always had this with vacation, something like, it's something that you have to do, but I'm not really looking forward to it. And then suddenly, in talking about this, I realized that when I was 23 years old, I went on a vacation and my father was very ill. And something inside me told me that I shouldn't go, but I went. And when I arrived at the location, I got this phone call that my father died, and so I had to go back.
Right.
And now I saw that maybe I've always believed this already, but that there was always this fear that when I went away, something would happen with
of course.
people I loved. Yeah, it's so obvious, but it took me 30 years to realize this. Right. And I feel already a different attitude is growing, or a different feeling about going away.
Right.
And so this keeps on moving.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Jane, how do you deal with the message of the Course that everything is an illusion, and that the whole world is an illusion, and that it's just a projection of the things that we believe? for me, that was also a hard part, to accept that everything is an illusion, and it's also something that my ego used. So I started to get a little bit depressed and, well, nothing makes sense. It's all an illusion. And
Why bother?
why bother?
Yeah.
I now understand that that's not the way. That's not what the course is telling us. But can you can you shine a little light on this subject, or how does this work for you? Yeah, about the fact that everything we see is something that we project, and about how this is for you, about the fact that the world is an illusion.
I tend not to pay much attention to that part.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
and it's not that I don't believe it, because I do, but I have a very strong belief that I'm here in this physical body for a reason, and that my soul is very, very busy learning, just learning, while I'm here in this form for however long. And so it's very helpful. Yes, absolutely, it's helpful sometimes to remind myself I'm not a body, I'm free, that whole lesson. To be able to step back from a situation and say, okay, no matter what this feels like, it's something that's been created by my mind, etc., etc. But I do, I think, sorry, got a body. I think we're supposed to use it. Yeah. And the Course is also very clear on that. It means nothing, but you have one, and you can use it as a tool for separation, or you can use it as a tool for communication. So to me, if I go to that more esoteric aspect, then I'm kind of skimming the surface of my life and my relationships. And I understand that not everybody feels this way, and that they get a great deal of comfort in terms of being able to be in a more, I guess, meditative state, or, the whole thing of, I think it's a Buddhist saying that says, or maybe it's in the Bible, that you are to be in this world, but not of it. And the Buddhists definitely talk about, while you're here, knowing that this is not who you are, play. Play like a child. You are a child of the universe. And, it's incredibly rich. I find it amazing how clever we are in terms of creating all the right interactions and circumstances to reinforce our limiting beliefs. It fascinates me. Yeah, we are very creative in that sense. Incredibly creative. And, so, I think in those circumstances, we're seeing the illusion play out, especially, I don't know if you've had this situation, but, you're with somebody, you're talking to somebody, and you feel the sense, I'm being drawn into something that I don't believe, but I can feel myself, I'm going to act in just the right way in order that this person is going to feel not wanted, not loved, but, it's like this magnet going on. I can't help but step back and say, really, that's it's very impressive in terms of our ability to create. And B, it's kind of funny. Really. Yeah, it is. And incredibly creative. Not ever as creative as when we make a commitment to heal. One of the things we do in our classes every year, and I think this year I'm not going to do it for myself, is we set a goal based on the Course in Miracles definition of a goal. Right? And it has to be in terms of a truth that you want to experience about yourself. I wanted, this year, I've had the same goal for 2 years. I want to experience being carefree, because that is also one of the instructions in the Course, that we are to be neither careful or careless, but carefree, which implies trust, obviously, right? But as soon as you do that, as soon as you set a goal like that, then the universe is like, okay, I'm on it.
I'm going to show you everything that's still between you and being carefree.
That's right. It always, so I don't think our ego is as brilliant as the universe in that sense.
No.
Because, you know, some of the, my idea of carefree and what that would look like compared to some of the lessons, and really having the discipline to say, I set the goal, this is a stepping stone, can't see how it's going to work, but somehow it's going to take me there. That's true creativity, and you know where I see I don't have any control.
No.
I really don't. Just
No.
there you go.
So you're not going to pick a goal. That's what you said.
I'm joking. I'm joking about it. I mean, in the end, I always look back and say, well, it's inspired by how it all works.
Yeah, and it fits because the Course says that we don't have to look for love, we only have to look for everything that's in the way,
that's right.
The blocks.
Yeah.
So when we set a goal, which is always an inner goal, then everything that's a block has to come into our consciousness or into the light.
That's
so
right.
That's what is happening then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You either resist it or embrace it.
And what you said earlier also brings me to another question, which is listening to the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and something which the Course is also talking about. I always find the writings of Ken Wapnick very inspiring and also enlightening, where he is telling us that the words God and Holy Spirit are only, and also Jesus, are only symbols for something, for an abstract thing that we will never be able to comprehend with our mind. And he is also talking about the fact that there's a pitfall in listening to the guidance of the Holy Spirit all the time and saying, oh yeah, this is what the Holy Spirit tells me, and that it's a phase that you should go through, and that you should, that it's not so that we're supposed to keep on listening. Yeah, I don't know if I put it right, but how is this for you? How do you follow the guidance? Do you do that in a conscious way, or how does it work?
I don't tend to, I'm not very disciplined. I mean, I think I'm disciplined in my own way, but I'm not disciplined in the sense of meditating every day or, that type of thing. I do believe that I'm in constant contact, and I tend to have many conversations. And I find that very helpful for me, because if I'm truly sharing everything, just like it talks about in practicing the holy instant, then I get different insights. And so that's really my way. And sometimes I think I'm deaf. I say that I want this guidance, but
you're just not.
I just want it to work out my way. And especially if I'm in fear. I think when we're feeling fearful, we close off that connection, and it's just a natural thing. So working through the fear to be able to get to a point of, okay, I'm open to whatever is supposed to happen. And then I do the best I can. Sometimes I do use a very specific technique, which is the left hand, right hand writing. So when you write the question with your dominant hand and reply with your non-dominant hand. So in the we haven't talked about it, we don't need to, but the next step cards, one of the cards in that pack talks about every day for a week, write a letter to God.
I know that one.
And then write back what you think God would say to you. And whenever I've done that, or whenever I'm really puzzled by something, I will use that technique using my dominant and
Okay.
non-dominant hands, and I'm amazed at what comes through.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my emergency.
That's your emergency connection line,
That's right.
communication line.
Yeah,
And it's a way of passing your thinking.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
By writing with your left hand. With me, I noticed that it doesn't. I think my thinking is too strong.
Practice.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said a very important thing in the beginning of your answer, that you trust that you are always in contact with the source or with God or the universe. So that it's not something that
it's not out of the ordinary, really. No, it's just like continually having a conversation with a friend.
Yeah.
That's just, I forget sometimes.
Yeah. To listen, to be open to it. Yeah. It's like a turnaround. I mean, you're always connected. You don't have to do something to get connected. And I recognize that in my life. For me, it feels very natural when I have to think about, am I connected right now, every moment of the day. Only when I'm in fear, it's very clear that it's my ego, and of course also in other different situations. But I start to feel it when it's my ego, when I'm blocked or when I'm resisting something. Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I believe about this too is, I mean, very rarely do I get clear directions. I would love to be one of those people that has a guide that talks to them and says, today you must do this.
Do that.
This is why
Or to hear a voice, a real
exactly. Yes. Yes, I would love that. I don't have that, but what I know is that sometimes a message does come through very clearly.
Okay.
And my way of knowing that this is the real thing is that it's quiet. It's very direct, very few words, but it's very quiet.
And it happens in important moments, maybe. That's what my experience is. When it's really needed. Yeah. Then there's something, okay, now, and then suddenly something is clear.
That's right.
It's like really knowing.
That's right.
What has to be done.
And exactly what you need to do. Make this phone call.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh yes, another person that inspired me, Paul Farini.
Oh yeah.
I like the works of Paul Farini very much.
Okay. Have you ever met him or have you worked with him, read his books? Yeah, I think we're getting to the end of this interview, Jane. I have one last question. If you could make a phone call to your 20-year-old self right now, what would you tell her? Is there a message you would like to give to her?
I think I would tell her just how absolutely amazing she is, and that it's not possible to make a mistake in this world. And have courage. Go for it.
Oh, that's a beautiful message. Thank you very much for this interview, for this talk. Lovely.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
Okay.